Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Devin Allen, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4. Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Travis Pittock from the Christ Lutheran Church. Pastor, thank you very much for coming out today. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. We begin in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, most gracious Lord, we thank you that in your word you have established government for our benefit, to keep us safe, to provide for your people, and to keep good order in our land. We certainly thank you for the men and women who serve this county before us today, and for all that they do to fulfill your ordinance of government. We ask that you be with them and bless them. Guide them by your Holy Spirit to make godly decisions as they govern over us. Send your holy angels to watch over them and protect them. Today, as we gather together as a county, we also remember all the men and women who work so hard for Tarrant County, and we thank you for them and ask your blessings to be upon them, especially our law enforcement agencies. Be with all those who serve in the Tarrant County Sheriff's Department, and keep them always in your gracious care, sending your angels to watch over them as well. Lord, with thanksgiving and praise, we open this meeting to your glory, honor, and praise. And we pray all this powerfully and boldly in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Agenda announcements, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Honor. Members of the court, we have three announcements relating to the agenda this morning. The first, just like to remind the court that we do have a public hearing this morning, and it deals with issue out in Precinct 1. Under the Elections Administration, item 8D1, we're going to hold that for 1 week. It'll be on next week's agenda. And then finally, members of the court, under Facilities Management, item 9E2, we're going to ask that item be held also. Okay, I gave you a wrong, I'm sorry. On the elections, it is 9D1, not 8D1.
The only item we got.
Yes, sir, it is.
So whatever they got, they ain't going to get.
We're going to hold it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of March the 19th and our special call meeting of March the 19th.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Allen, I believe you have a proclamation.
Well, it is both myself and Commissioner Brooks, and I don't know that we have a group here to receive it.
There is not a group to receive it. It is in honor of Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta Day. That will be celebrated this Saturday with a march in downtown Fort Worth, and the proclamation will be presented at that time. I move for ratification.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda with the changes as indicated by Mr. Manius.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We now have a public hearing. Joe, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning,
Judge. Today, I come to you requesting that the Commissioners Court conduct a public hearing to consider the placement of a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit sign on Luca, I believe it is, Drive in Precinct 1.
Yucca.
According to state law, because of the spacing of the driveways and
Yucca. Go right ahead.
according to the state law, based on the spacing of the driveways and the structures, this has a prima facie speed limit of 30 miles an hour, and we're asking for your approval for that installation of that speed limit sign.
This is a public hearing, so at this time I'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone wishing to speak to this matter. There being none, then I will close the public hearing.
Can I ask?
I move.
Go ahead. Go ahead. My question.
I move approval of the 30-mile-per-hour speed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
I understand the state, after reading the paper today, the state has a couple proposed bills that would lower what we might refer to as the default speed limit, which currently is 30 miles an hour in residential areas, to 25 miles an hour.
Okay.
What would that cost us? That change? I'm just.
The way the rules are written right now is we can actually go down to 25, but we can only do it with a traffic study. We have traffic counters available that we can set out there, and I'll look at those and I'll make a recommendation to you guys based on that. I haven't seen this piece of legislation yet, but as far as the cost, it's very minimal. Just time for our guys to set those traffic counters out there and do that.
Well, if it changes the default limit from 30 to 25.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Change all of our 30s.
We have
Well,
to change all the signs.
Yes.
let me
That's
do
what
some
I'm talking
research on that. Let me do some research on that. I do not know.
Someone might be prepared to answer that question in a few minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Ms. Tidwell.
We have two items for the court to consider this morning. The first is to ask the court to receive and file the quarterly investment report for the period ended December 31st, 2018.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And the other item would be to ask the court to receive and file the Tarrant County financial statements for the period ended of the month of January 2019.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Glenn.
Move to receive and file the personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Good morning, Ms.
Good
Glenn.
morning, and thank you. We have two additional items. They're both waivers. The first is a waiver for the 323rd District Court. This is Judge Kim. Judge Kim's associate judge is leaving at the end of this month with 400 vacation hours. Judge Kim is requesting a waiver effective April 1st. The cost to the general fund we're estimating to be approximately $34,700 and some change. That does include fringe benefits.
I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I did talk with Judge Kim about this, and he indicated that the backlog and that this would create a big problem for him. So, please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our final item, again, as mentioned, is a waiver, this time for the county clerk's office. Ms. Nicholson is requesting a waiver of 400 vacation hours effective, also April 1st, details of which are outlined in your communique. We're estimating the cost to the general fund to be right at $11,000. That does include fringe benefits.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Beecham, how are your boys doing?
Oh, he's got something better.
Well, in my mind, we're still playing, but in reality, we're not. However,
However,
our Lady Razorbacks play the Lady Frogs Thursday night at 7 o'clock in the women's portion of the little dance, which is
Okay.
kind of something. Kind of.
LSU's still playing in the big dance. Just thought I'd throw that in. Go ahead, sir.
We have 5 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2019-096. This is a bid for the purchase and replacement of uninterruptible power source batteries at the Plaza Building. Recommendation be to award the low bidder, CEC Facilities Group, the amount of $281,034. If the court chooses to approve this, we're seeking contract approval as well as acceptance of the payment and the performance bond.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is another bid award recommendation for bid 2019-099. This is our contract for Class 7 cab and chassis trucks with a box van body and a potential 4,000-pound lift gate. Recommendation would be to award on a per price basis, awarding as item 1 and 2 to the primary vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3 is another bid award recommendation for bid 2019-105. This is our annual contract for the purchase of digital copiers and their maintenance. Recommendation be to award on a per price basis, awarding to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4, also a bid award recommendation for bid 2019-113. This is our annual contract for carpet, tile, and miscellaneous flooring materials and services. Recommendation be to award on a per price basis and a discount from list price. Selected as our primary vendor, Gomez Floor Covering. As our secondary vendor, Lookup Properties Incorporated.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our last item, number 5, is an item in regards to RFP 2017-088. This was initially, the renewal was initially approved in Commissioner's Court September 18th, 2018, under Court Order 128590. On the 20th of March 2019, we received an email from the awardee, Synergen Solutions, notifying us that they are ceasing all business operations effective March 31st, 2019. With that in mind, we are suggesting cancellation of that award and seeking permission to rebid.
That'll be a pretty good idea.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, how much was that original?
$50,000.
Right.
Had they
It was
performed
up
any
to
duties?
50. It was a matter of up to 50.
Huh?
It was a matter of the maximum was up to 50. I think we're charged $7 a call.
Okay, had they performed certain functions and they got started?
As I understand, there were problems. Chris, you may want to make comments. As I understand that there were problems. There was no secondary award at the time. Again, we're going to try to rebid, or will rebid, and try to
We
find.
out any unrecoverable dollars or services? Or?
No, sir.
Tell them what your plan is. You got a plan?
We have a plan. I'll have Ross, who oversees our operations, speak to that contingency.
So let me answer part of the questions. No, we did not lose any money. We were charged per call. So we paid, I believe we paid about $25,000 on this particular contract. So we were well within our limits. I believe that the reason that this company could not sustain itself was because of the low volume of calls that they were receiving. It was not because of the quality of the service.
Okay. Thanks.
Tell them what we're going to be doing.
Good morning. Due to security concerns, we decided to cease use of Synergon immediately. Had concerns that people who were planning to roll out the door wouldn't have our best interests at heart. So as an interim, we've changed scheduling of staff for the service desk to allow internal staff to accept those calls while we explore potentially using a different staff augmentation service that we already have an engagement with. Longer term, in the next 4 or 5 months, we're looking at automating the phone system to do voice recognition after hours and do either taking messages or doing call outs automated through that. So we have a long-term plan where we won't need Synergon or that type of service in the future.
Something that Mr. Manius said made me think that this company was so small that they were only set up because they thought they had a business with Tarrant County, and the volume was so low that it wasn't a sustaining volume enough to keep them going. Is that true?
I don't know.
That's the information we have received. This is not a company that simply serviced Tarrant County, but what we're going to hear, that we talked about the fact that we're moving to a different type of service where it's automated. A lot more companies are going that way, and that is replacing a voice, a real voice answering service.
Yes, but Your Honor, they were a legitimate company out there. They did not set up just for Tarrant County. Not that way.
But our volume was such, and we're talking about a $25,000 to $50,000 contract. How did that put them out of business because our volume was so low?
I might not have been clear. It wasn't just Tarrant County. That entire industry is shrinking. So, but
how long has this company been in business?
I don't know, Your Honor.
Jack?
Your Honor, I don't have that answer. I can sort of find out for you. I don't know the answer off the top of my head this morning.
Okay.
When the references, we checked references with everybody. The references checked out well when we initially recommended the award, but I've heard that they've been not performing at the highest level for a while.
Okay.
I'll get you the answer.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Fickus.
Have an interlocal. I want to move approval. Interlocal with the city of Southlake on Continental Boulevard.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve item 9I, 1A, and B. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments? I have a few.
I have some too.
Okay, on the history?
Yep.
Historical Commission?
Yep.
Mine are Doug Harmon, Rick Seltzer, Robert Holmes, Jack Edmondson, Kent Knudsen, Stacy Luker, Clara Holmes.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Anybody else have any?
I'll be waiting to visit with the current members before I make any reappointments.
I have some existing members reappointed, Irvin Hawk, Jim Hodgson, Debbie Meek, Randall Shiflett, and I have two new ones, Debbie Durko, who's from North Richland Hills, and then Susie McCormick from Euless are the two new ones. And I have some data information to give to, I guess, Natalie on those two new ones. So.
Okay. With that, then we have, so I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Court members, you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, Mr. Schaffner has provided you with a memorandum detailing the activities that he has been involved in with the legislature this past week. I'll attempt to, I'll make one or two comments, and then I'll attempt to answer any questions you might have. It looks like, even though it's becoming fast and furious, a lot of bills are slowing down there, which is pretty normal. HB 2, which is a 2.5% revenue cap, has slowed down even more. It is locked in the House committee right now, and it is not moving out of that committee at the current time. So it's a wait and see as far as that's concerned. Also, SB 5 with Benton Court is going to be heard this week, and it allows for jurisdictions to provide homestead exemptions in a dollar amount rather than a percentage amount, and we will be supportive of that particular bill. We have a policy statement by the court on that particular issue. With those two, I know that all of you are involved with legislative activities, but those issues that are listed in Mr. Schaffner's memo, I'll attempt to answer any questions you may have.
I am hearing that there is the chance that they are trying to push HB 2 out of committee on Wednesday. It's unlikely, but it's not altogether impossible, and that they're talking about doing that with 2.5%, with little, if any, carve-outs.
Right.
And I would just strongly suggest that anybody who can talk with their representatives and encourage them to try to get that kept in the committee and not passed out. Again, that will have a pretty dramatic effect on especially rural counties from the standpoint of the 2.5% and the ability for them to be able to spend any money on roads and bridges and different things along that line. It will affect, I believe, us as it pertains to discretionary things. And some of those discretionary things that we do, we basically fund 41 additional CPS workers. We've created some special units within the DA's office. The sheriff also has special things going on. So that would be something that I would just suggest that we at least let our reps know that could have a negative impact. GK, you mentioned the homestead, and what was the SB on that? What was that?
I believe it's SB 5.
I didn't see it on the.
It's not on the list.
No, I received an
No, but I'm
email.
talking about his list of all bills, so I'm wondering if it's something else. Because the one thing,
I believe I'm correct on that.
I think,
I'll get back with you on that.
I think that the one thing I'm not sure about that bill is that if it sets a floor at what that homestead dollar exemption could be, and my hope would be that it doesn't set a minimum amount, but allows for us to be able to look at that and do whatever we see fit. And I'm sure that's, I've had that conversation with Russell, but from our perspective, I think instead of saying we've got to do a minimum of X before we can do that, I would rather it be able to be 0 up as opposed to maybe starting at 30 or 35,000 and moving up. And I believe that that's what that bill may have had in the beginning.
When I talked to Mr. Schaffner this morning, Judge, I expressed the same thing to him, that our position was that it did not have a floor. It could possibly have a ceiling, but that dollar amount should be a local control issue that was set by the local governing agencies.
So I just wanted to be sure that y'all all heard that. If you have different opinions, then you might want to at least talk with Russell and be sure he's aware of where y'all stand on some of those issues. Anything else on the legislative?
Not on the legislative issue. Are there any other questions? If not, Judge, may we move on?
Okay, please.
You want to remember the court, there's two other items. The first is a public health update. Mr. Tenasia is here to address the court at this time.
Morning, Your Honor, members of the court. We have an update for you on measles in Tarrant County.
One of my commissioners is looking for a flu shot.
Sure, we'll do that.
I was wondering who was going to tell me. I'm recovered from the flu, even though I may not sound like it.
Yeah, officially we're like 2 days away, maybe 3 days away from the end of the official flu season. We're out of the woods on that one.
Well, you got some shots
but next year I'll get you early. All right. So we did have one case of measles in Tarrant County, if you caught on the news. So just to get you situational awareness, currently in the state of Texas, there are about 14 cases reported, with one reported in Tarrant County last week. It was an adult with international travel to an area that had a known increase of measles cases. So the person brought it back with them. We're still working through the contacts and all those type of things, but, I put out a statement that the general public should not worry. I don't think there's any risk to the general public from that particular case. Yes, healthcare contracts, household contacts, so on and so forth, we're working through all of that, but the general public should not worry, and the reason for that is measles is considered eliminated in the United States since the year 2000. Yes, we have pockets of people here and there that are not immunized, but, we don't expect this to get out into the community as such.
So this person that brought, they had not been vaccinated?
I can't discuss that publicly, sir, but,
Okay.
Usually, so what happens is with adults, if they're born before 1957, they're considered immune. After 1957, people at least have one vaccination, and then since late 90s or mid 90s, I think they added a second dose as a recommendation. So most kids and the younger adults have at least 2 doses. Adults in general have at least one or are immunized or considered immune because they were born before 1957. So with one dose, the immunity level is about 93%. So 93% of the folks who have at least one dose are considered immune. So that does bring into play the 7% who may have had a vaccine and didn't get the full immunity. And then with the younger kids, with 2 doses, it's about 97-98% effective, which is one of the most effective vaccines we have. Flu vaccine, on the other hand, about 50% on a good day. So, it kind of tells you why measles is eradicated and flu is not. But just to give you situational awareness from a nationwide perspective, we have, the graph actually needs to be updated. I was waiting till late Friday and CDC updated on the weekend. We have 314 reported cases in 2019. And there are 6 current outbreak states or outbreak areas that are known. There are 2 in New York. One is New York City, then Rockland County, I believe, in New York. And then, of course, we have Texas, Illinois, California, and state of Washington. Those are areas where there's currently known activity of measles happening. So what is measles? It is a highly contagious viral illness, and the virus can stay suspended in the air for hours after, at least usually about 2 hours after the infectious person has been in the room. So if I had measles and I leave this room, up to 2 hours later, people here, if they are not immunized, could have a risk of getting measles from just me being around. And that's how infectious this illness is. Symptoms can usually, begin usually about 7 to 21 days, but average is about 12 days is when people become symptomatic after exposure. So how is measles spread? It's a human disease, so there is no other reservoir. Flu, for example, birds and animals are a reservoir. West Nile, birds are a reservoir. But in case of measles, it's only a human disease, so we spread it to each other. And like I was saying earlier, anyone born in or after 1957, or in or before 1957, that's a typo there, before 1957 is considered immune because they probably had the measles because we didn't have a vaccine. And then I think after 1957, if a person has not had the vaccine or the measles, then they're considered at risk. It is spread by droplets. So when you cough or sneeze, the droplets suspend in the air, and that's how the virus travels. And the person is considered infectious 4 days before the onset of measles rash and 4 days after. So a total duration of 9 days.
Vinny, you know, we've talked about how to cough, how to sneeze. Often, and I think in some of the other things you said, that when the germs hit the slave, then it'll die fairly rapidly. Is that the case with measles, or is that then going to be something you're carrying around for the 2 hours?
You probably will, because it is, again, a very highly infectious disease, but most of the transmission occurs from droplets. You know, this will be considered what a fomite transmission. Again, unless you're rubbing it into somebody, that's, you know, you're more likely to cough on them than to rub something from your arm. So it's fairly safe if you cough or, you know, sneeze into your arm. But yeah, I mean, this one is a very highly infectious illness, but most of the transmission occurs from droplets themselves. Now, what are the signs and symptoms? Of course, most people know about the rash, but there are other things that are very typical of measles. It usually starts with a mild to moderate fever, with cough and runny nose, red eyes, and or a sore throat. So in the medical world, we know about it as the 3 C's of measles: cough, coryza, and conjunctivitis. So coryza is just the runny nose and you know, the kind of the scratchiness and all that goes with it. 1 to 4 days after the symptoms start, typically there's a red or reddish-brown rash, and it usually starts on the person's face at their hairline and then kind of spreads downwards and outwards. So if you're familiar with a centrifuge that kind of spins outward, that's how the rash spins out onto your body. And it's very typical for measles, because the chickenpox rash kind of goes the other way. It starts on your extremities, works its way towards the core of the body. So that's usually kind of the differentiating feature there. And the question I get asked, well, if measles is eliminated and most people just get a mild fever and a rash, what's the big deal? Is it a serious illness? Yes, it is a very serious illness. We've kind of forgotten how serious it was when we did not have the vaccine. In unimmunized individuals, 90% attack rate. It just doesn't spare people. If you're close to somebody with measles and you're not immunized, 90% of the time you're going to get measles. You know, it doesn't spare anyone. That's the key about this disease. And person can become very seriously ill. Over the years, of course, we haven't seen the complications happen as much because vaccine has been around and, you know, the rates drastically dropped. But, you know, the most common complication that, you know, caused a death was a pneumonia. In young children, that can happen. Otherwise, you know, the milder form of the disease, you get a fever or a rash. You'll probably get diarrhea, ear infections, all those type of things. Those are common occurrences. In rare cases, we also get encephalitis with measles. And a known but a rare complication of measles that also is fatal is a subacute sclerosing panencephalitis. It's a long-term SSPE. But it usually manifests about 7 to 10 years after you've had measles. So it's hard for the doctors to even diagnose, well, why you're getting this encephalitis. You have no other known reason. And on a good history taking, you'll find that, you know, that was related to measles. So it's a rare complication. You know, they had a big outbreak in the 1990s in I think in New York, and they found that the rate was only about 4 to 11 cases per 100,000. But you know, it can be fatal because it's hard to diagnose, and, you know, encephalitis is kind of hard to treat as well. So that brings me to another point, because we've had some news articles about, you know, treatments for measles and such, and there is none. There is no treatment. It's a viral illness, so there are no antibiotics that can cure measles. In fact, there are no antivirals that are known at this time that can cure measles. The only thing that can do, I mean, we have supportive treatment, so you've got a complication of measles, we're going to treat you for that, put fluids in, get your fever down, all those type of things. But it's not a cure, it's not a treatment for the measles itself. You have to just kind of go through it. But the only way to prevent the spread is that vaccination is highly effective in case of measles. You know, the CDC recommends the MMR vaccine, which is measles, mumps, and rubella combined. The first dose is recommended at 12 to 15 months of age, and the second dose is recommended at 4 to 6 years of age. And like I was saying earlier, 2 doses are about 97–98% effective, which is the best effectiveness for any vaccine that we've known. Most other vaccines don't come close to that. They're good, but not as good as this vaccine. one key thing, if you have a young infant and you're traveling abroad, because overseas measles is still, large amounts of measles still occurs. Not all countries have eliminated measles. Then we recommend that even at the young age of 6 months to 11 months, at least one dose of measles vaccine should be given before the infant travels abroad. And it does not count towards your 2 doses that are recommended. So when they come back, they're supposed to get their 2 doses as well. I had our team look at some vaccination data we have from 2017-18. Most schools in Tarrant County have a good vaccination rate, but there are pockets where the rates were low. There were some private schools and a charter school that had low rates. Most schools have above 90%. In fact, most have above 95% vaccination rate. But some were low, below 80% as well. So that's what we worry about when a disease from the outside comes into a community. We hope that it doesn't get into a pocket. If y'all recall, we had a 16-case outbreak in 2013, and it got into a community that was related to a church, and there were people who did not take the vaccine, and it quickly spread to a lot of people. 16 people were, affected with the measles. And that's what we worry when things happen. And that's a reminder that everybody should, take the vaccination so that our community stays protected.
Can school districts require vaccinations?
Yes, sir. So it is Texas law that once you get into school, you're supposed to have the vaccine, but Texas also allows for conscientious objections to vaccine. So some parents choose to not have their child immunized. And what we've seen is a lot of those are in private schools or some in charter schools. Of course, in public schools also, there are some objections, but mostly we're finding that there are some pockets. So like-minded people will go to school together, and that creates a little bit of a challenge. If a measles case was to enter in that school, we'll have a problem.
So I thought you said that school districts could require it. But
it is
required.
required.
I thought you just said that they could conscientiously object.
Yes, sir.
So they're not requiring it.
Well, the conscientious objection, there's a process to go through. You talk to your doctor, you go and talk to the state of the health department, DSHS. There's a conscientious objection form that you're supposed to go through some education, get it signed, get it approved by the state. So then it meets your requirement for the school, because the school required everybody to take it, but then somebody had an approved exception to that requirement. So it's been a big debate.
So basically,
yes,
if you're
sir.
not going to take it, you're going to have to go through a couple of stages where they're going to attempt to educate you
Correct.
on
Yes, sir.
the vaccine and hopefully convince you to take it.
Yes, sir. That is
Or have your
correct.
child take it.
Correct.
Okay.
But that exception is growing. I think that, and Russ can help me, I think in the early 2000s that became state law, and we've seen exponential growth in people asking for exemptions. And there's pockets in Tarrant County,
And
Denton County,
frankly,
Collin County.
That exemption is a clear and present danger to
It
public
is.
health.
It is. It's been a hot topic of debate. Even last legislative session, there was a big debate about it, but people continue to believe what they believe. So here we are.
Let me ask you, Benny, about.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Back towards the front. Well, so on your situational awareness slide, Dallas is excluded, and I guess they just had a recent case, I guess maybe last week. I was going to ask you about it, but I know you were out.
No. I think it was Denton County about a month ago that had the case.
Okay.
And then we had it. Did Dallas have a case, Russ? Not that I am aware of, no.
I thought I heard the same thing. I thought I heard them listed on the radio as a measles case.
But is there a reason why they're excluded from here?
No, these are just the case counts that are known and reported in Texas. So they're not excluded. I mean, as far as I know, they didn't have a case, but I could be wrong. And I mean, we just got this from the state, database. So,
Okay.
all right, let me get back to the slide. So if there was any doubt about the efficacy of the vaccine, so this is so important. I mean, history speaks for itself. We had, before 1963, when the vaccine came out, about 3 to 4 million people in the United States got measles every year. And out of that, about 500,000 were reported each year to CDC. Just the sheer volume was, hard to report and keep up with. And then when the vaccine got licensed in 1963, I mean, you can see on the map, on the graph, I mean, just a drastic decline over the next few years to minimal. I mean, you can't. The picture speaks for itself. I can't explain it in words. Why do people doubt this? I can't understand. And there were 400 to 500 people that died, 48,000 hospitalizations, over 1,000 cases of encephalitis reported. Since then, we've had measles eliminated in the year 2000, but even before that, I mean, it was just negligible number of cases. 99% of the cases were eliminated. There were a few blips, outbreaks here and there, and then in the late 1980s, I think early 90s, they recommended a second dose, and that just pretty much took care of measles. So if anybody has any doubt at all, that vaccines don't work, I mean, this is proof. I don't need any other studies. I mean, the data shows itself on a chart that's very easy to understand. Once we licensed the vaccine and public started taking it, measles went away. So why is there an argument? I don't know. I mean, that's one of those things that, why people even have that is just beyond me. So that's all I have. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. These are our data sources. Anything else? All right. Thank you.
Finally, members of the court, on item number C, this is a text update regarding projects in our county. Mr. Skinner is going to introduce our speaker.
Morning, Coach.
Morning.
Tarrant County has always been integrally involved in transportation. Certainly over the last several years, we've seen that with the 2006 bond program, passage of that program, and more recently the West Tarrant Transportation Initiative and the partnerships that we have with our cities. So there's been quite a bit that has been going on in Tarrant County. And we have Mr. Lowell Bussell, District Engineer, Fort Worth District TxDOT, to give us an update on the major projects that are happening across the county. Turn it over to Lowell.
Morning, Lowell. How are you?
Good morning.
I'm doing great, Judge, Commissioners. How are y'all this morning? So I appreciate the opportunity to present a brief overview of some projects this morning. This is a very small number. It would take us several days probably to go over everything. But I wanted to highlight a few and kind of talk a little bit about what's going on in Tarrant County. First off, I would like to say that I do appreciate the partnership that TxDOT has with Tarrant County. I know we're able to accomplish some pretty amazing things as partners and do some things that we couldn't do as individuals, but as a group we can do together. So thank you. Just to start out, our mission, as always, is the movement of people and goods and moving them safely, reliably, in an integrated system. This gives you an idea of what we're dealing with in the Fort Worth District. 9,000 miles of road. We've got 4,000 bridges. So tremendous system just within this area that we've got to take care of. So our estimated annual construction letting is $400 million. Our total contracts right now are $5.1 billion. If you do the math, you can see that something looks a little bit out of whack there. Well, you have to remember we've been innovative in the last few years with our financing, and we've been able to leverage a considerable amount of construction and contracts. So that's why the $5.1 billion compared to the $400 million per year. 49% complete on our projects. And then after we get them constructed, we still have to maintain them. So we have roughly $120 million maintenance budget per year.
The expenses that we've, the projects that we've done like Tarrant Express, North Tarrant Express, and how much is do you have an estimate on how much cost of maintaining the free lanes that Blue Bonnet is taking on, that therefore you do not have to maintain?
I don't have the actual cost, but it is considerable because the section from on 35 from I-30 up now north of around Alliance, something like that, and then on 820 and 183. That's a significant number of lanes, free lanes, that they are maintaining for us for 50 years. So it is a
Is the
sizable
same thing
cost.
happening on DFW Connector? Is that also being maintained?
No, DFW Connector is not a public-private partnership. We
But
did a design
LBJ
build.
over in Dallas would be similar?
Yes, sir. Yes.
And then Chisholm is all maintained by NTTA?
That is correct. A slide that I'm sure y'all are familiar with. It's just showing the growth that we're looking at in 2040 and the impacts to the region. Kind of gives you a sense of what our challenges are. So I'll drop into specific projects now. The first being, and this right now is our big project that is our priority. It's the Southeast Connector. It is the I-20, I-820, and US 287, where all of those corridors, all of those roadways come together. Traffic mixes and mingles through there, and then you eventually get out of it. We're looking at a cost of $1.7 billion to completely reconstruct this interchange. We will approach it very similar to what we did on the DFW Connector. It will be a design build. So we'll look at it from that perspective. That allows the contractor or the developer to come in, do the design, address some of the challenges through after construction started with the design process. So it's efficient, should be a time savings there.
As I understand that, that's going to have a connector from the 287 south of 20 to the 287 west of 820, where if you're going to there, you will not have to get off and get on to 20 or 820.
Correct.
Will that connector follow the right-of-way for the existing 20 and 820?
Yes, there's no major right-of-way takings for the reconstruction of this project. There will be some, but no major takings.
Has the facility been designed?
No, sir. No, we are still in the schematic and environmental phase. So we still have a public hearing. We've been doing a tremendous amount of public outreach, trying to work with the communities, really get their feedback so that whatever project we end up with out there, it's something that we can all be proud of and functions for all of us.
Well, out of the 1.7 billion, what do you have right now, dollars?
We have.
What's the short? What don't you have?
So we are in the neighborhood of 400 million shy right now. So that's kind of our gap that we're looking at. And I'm working with NCT COG with Michael, seeing what can we do to from our side help with the covering that gap.
Is there any consideration to do like you did on the DFW Connector, where that was 1.5 billion, you had $1 billion, and you did $1 billion, and then you filled in over the past 5 years?
Yes, that is still a consideration. In other words, if for whatever reason we can't get this 400 million, this gap, we know there's still a core project here that we can focus on, and then as available funding comes up, we can add those deferred components to the project.
Is that project what the governor calls a free lane, a clear lane project?
It does have clear lanes funding on it.
That estimated construction, is that beginning construction or ending construction?
That's beginning. So once we get environmental clearance, so we're looking at that somewhere in 2020. It'll take us about a year to procure to get a design builder on board. So that puts us in 2021. There's design, there's utilities, right of way that we'll have to do, and so we're looking at 2022. We're hoping.
Your fiscal year or calendar year?
That's a fiscal year there, 2022. So potentially September of 21.
Okay. Just want to.
Yes, sir.
Keep us moving.
Taking all my questions. No, I'm
I'm
teasing.
sorry.
No, I'm totally teasing.
This kind of gives you a little bit of some of the specifics. 60% complete on the schematic. Again, we can't complete it until we get all that public feedback. Looking at the environmental clearance in 2020, we're actually going out there and starting some early survey so that if there are areas where we know the right-of-way taking, the adjacent property owners know exactly what's going on, there may be ways to do some early acquisition, which would end up saving us some time. Everyone that's familiar with the area knows that scene quite well. So this was a slide that I wanted to just show, just to kind of give you an idea of the traffic volumes we're talking about. Wow. So 20 through that area from 820 to 287, we're running at about 250,000 today, and we're looking at almost 350 in the future. So again, just tremendous growth, and we know the bottleneck is there today. It's not going to get any better unless we address it.
Well, and by 2040, the state, we're expected to have over 41 million folks. We're at about 28 million now. Gas tax hadn't been raised since 1991. The legislature no longer lets us do projects like the North Tarrant Express or CDA type projects.
Correct.
So I would again, encourage folks to talk with their representatives and say, if this area by a vote of the people want to do something like that, we should be allowed to do it. And I know that you're not going to make any comment about that, nor should you. But we need to talk with our folks and tell them, let us have the option of not getting caught in gridlock. And the sooner we do it, the better the quicker we'll be able to move. We spent, close to probably $25 billion in the last decade because we had the ability to do that. And a good amount of that came from the private sector. And that's not possible under the current environment and the current law that we have.
So just a highlight of the public outreach. We had a public meeting back in July of last year. 273 attended, 200 general public. So that's a really nice turnout for a public meeting. We had 174 written comments. And like I said earlier, we look at each one of those comments, we address them, we make sure that we're taking everything into consideration. In addition to kind of the formal part of what we do, we've also we've participated in town hall meetings with Representative Collier, their community meeting with Fort Worth Councilmember Bivens. We've met with obviously various cities in the area, Lions clubs, Optimist clubs. Again, we're trying to be very transparent in the design, make sure that what ends up on paper is whatever, no surprises for anyone. So,
thank you also, Will, for attending the Southeast Tarrant Transportation Partnership membership meeting last week. I know you took a lot of questions from the audience about the product, but thank you for being there. And I know we were supposed to meet on Friday, but of course I was sick. So, but thanks for all your work on this to date.
My pleasure. So, moving now to 820 at 199. So we are working on the interchange there. And so this is from Maysville Avenue to Byway, which is just east of Roberts Road Cutoff. It's going to be main lane improvements. Really the big part of it is going to provide that connection to 820. We'll also do frontage road and cross street improvements, bicycle ped improvements. So we've got about 3 alternatives I'll show you, and then again public hearing. We're looking summer of next year and an estimated award in 2024. 2024 is it's a conservative estimate. we still have right-of-way, we still have utilities to take care of is what pushes that date out. We're considering this one as a design build also. So I wanted to show, this was the original alternative from years ago when 199 was a freeway all the way into downtown. So we were going to reconstruct those freeway main lanes. They would tie into 199 going on into downtown. So that is not really what we're looking at today. Things have changed on 199. It's more of a arterial boulevard section as it goes into downtown. So we have to transition from that freeway to the west, make that tie into 820, and then work through to the existing 199. So the first alternative we looked at, or we're looking at, and again we're going out to the public with this, is it would bring the traffic would still continue through the 820 intersection on 199, but there would be direct connectors that could take you from the west side to the east side in a direct manner. All completely directional connectors to 820. So that's one option that we're looking at. That was the $220 million option that I showed earlier.
And this is the one that is preferred by Lake Worth?
I believe the third one is the preferred one.
Okay.
I'll show you the third one. There we go. So what it does, again, since 199 is not going to be a freeway section into downtown, the thought is where the freeway ends, we provide that direct connection to 820, both in and out. And then we, on the 199 traffic, we take it down the existing route. We improve the intersections at the frontage roads of 820. So that would be improved. I think in this particular drawing, we're looking at divergent diamond intersections. And this option, I believe, was 140 million.
So it's about 80 million less.
Yes.
Can you go back to the other one real quick?
So this basically allows for traffic to continue, if it's coming, if it's going from north to south and going to stick to 199 heading to Fort Worth, or south to north, it will continue to take it down the existing road. However, if they're looking to get onto 820 either east or west, there will be direct ramps that will get them to that prior to going down that, what is now the existing road.
That's option 3. That is correct. Okay. Option 2 would be, or alternative 2 would be, if you wanted to continue on 199, you basically could skip the intersections at the frontage road.
Right. So, yeah, so it would be, Lake Worth would be looking for that alternative 3.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can get that.
Okay. Saves 80 million. Synchronization of lights can still move that through there on a pretty good basis. On alternative 3.
Okay. Slides don't seem to want to advance.
Advance to slide 3. There you go.
Okay. So there's slide 3. So
yes. No new freeway going back into town.
Correct.
Well, and it wasn't a new freeway. Yeah. It was just some. Ramp. It was a direct ramp that would have avoided that people going down that retail road. Okay.
If it's not advancing, just tell her to advance it. She can get it.
Okay. So we had a public meeting in February of this year. 171 attended. 27 written comments. So we're getting some feedback on it. Again, we're gathering that same type of feedback as the other project, and we'll incorporate those comments in and move it forward. Okay. So this project is out on the west side of town, And basically, it's the lane drop that we have between 580 and 820. So if you travel through there, we lose a lane as you go west on 30 at 820, and then coming east on 30, you lose that lane at 580. So this is going to reconfigure the intersection at 580 and then add that lane along 30 to 820. And we've worked with COG. They actually kicked off a lot of the public outreach effort, had some public meetings, some specific neighborhood group meetings in that area too. So we're still working with them to get this one cleared as well.
Now you're adding one lane. Has there been any conversation at all about, with the growth and projections, that you had two versus just one?
We will definitely look at that right now it's proposed adding one lane, but we consider all the future traffic projections. So if it makes sense to go ahead and either build that extra lane now or accommodate it for the future, we will definitely do that.
Can you go back to the next one? The details?
This one?
$100 million.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next 2 years start?
Yes, so we're looking at the public hearing this summer. Again, we've got some right-of-way we've got to take care of there at 580 and some utilities. So it's going to take a little bit of time to get that.
So you are going to have to buy some right-of-way. That was going to be my next question.
Yes. Yes.
When you buy that right-of-way, are you required, is there only so much right-of-way you can purchase? Let's say you decide you're only going to go one lane in either direction, but you know at some point in the future you're going to have to go two lanes. Can you go ahead and buy that right-of-way now?
No.
So what has to happen in order for you to buy the right-of-way right now?
So
Does our COG or does our RTC have to do something?
no, what we'll do, and that's why you'll see is if we leave room for capacity, it's typically to the inside. So you'll see us having the ability to build to the inside, not have to go back out and get additional right-of-way.
Yeah, but the inside's already built there. So the only direction you can go is out. So you can't really go out unless there's room between, I don't know how close and where that right-of-way is that you'd have to purchase, but.
So if through the analysis we determine that it's going to require two additional lanes in each direction, we will get the right-of-way to accommodate those two lanes because that's what's required.
Okay.
I guess the point I was trying to make is we can't just randomly say we think there's going to be expansion, so we're going to buy an extra.
You shouldn't have to randomly say that with Walsh Ranch and everything else that's going on out there. Okay.
We just have to have the numbers to back it up. So the next project is actually an ongoing project. This is the north part of the DFW connector. And it's what we talked about earlier where we built the base project, the core project, and then we've had deferred components that we've added back. This was a Texas Clear Lanes project that we used $370 million of Texas Clear Lanes funding to reconstruct the interchange at 635 and 121. And it's not, everything is not completely done on the DFW connector, but this will be the last major piece.
And I guess the comment that I would make, and I've made this before, is even though that sits within Fort Worth District, it's of more benefit to the Dallas District because all those cars that are coming down there are coming out of the Dallas District. And in many instances coming down to 114 or 635 and heading very quickly back into the Dallas District. So if there is a formula by which that those funds are allocated, my contention would be that the Fort Worth District shouldn't be solely responsible for using their formula funds toward doing that.
Understood.
And if we need to write a letter to that effect, we can. consider doing
I
that.
think we already got the money.
Right, and this is again is Texas Clear Lane, so it is commission funding. This did not come out of
Any formula allocation?
none of our
Okay.
formula allocated funding. Just an overhead view of some of the work that's ongoing. If you're familiar with that area, you know it is one advantage of design build. They're very fast. They can really pick up the pace in a hurry. 114 in South Lake and West Lake, there's discontinuous frontage roads through there. So this project is going to provide the connectivity on the frontage roads between Davis and Dove Road. So we've been working with South Lake and West Lake to advance this project forward.
Now, that's also where Charles Schwab and
TD Ameritrade.
Ameritrade.
That's correct. So we know there's that upcoming traffic volume. We also know that during an incident on any main lane that we have discontinuous frontage road, we lose any connectivity. So this provides that relief. Estimated going to contract on this one is 2020. We have a little bit of right of way, but I think it's pretty minor.
Are you doing the Texas turnarounds on both sides of Kirkwood?
I'd have to verify, but I believe that is correct.
Southbound or northbound?
Correct. Okay. So this one is I-20 in Southwest Fort Worth. Just happens to be part of my commute. So as you're coming in on 20, usually I start hitting in the morning traffic west of 820. It starts backing up there. It stays congested all the way through to Chisholm Trail Parkway or Bryant Urban, something like that. Now, if you look at the way traffic is, we're getting a lot of traffic coming from 377, Winscott, Benbrook mainly, coming on to 20 there. There's a short little auxiliary lane. What we're going to do is extend that auxiliary lane across the river, tie that into Bryant Urban. So
Make your commute a little bit easier.
I will probably have already moved by the time we get this finished. So
Good luck with that one.
Well, I'd say it's happening pretty quick, so you must be planning on moving.
My daughter graduates in May, and it will be shortly after we'll move. I need to be a little closer to the office, and
I hear you.
Well, when you're district engineer, if you can't get your own road fixed from work to home, yeah, not doing it.
These two projects, we talked about these as far as part of the Tarrant County Western Initiative. This is 1187, which picks up there in Crowley, where the roads come together over to Chisholm Trail. That's the first one. We're going to widen it from 2 lanes to 4-lane divided. It's about 3 miles. We've looked at the schematic, got public hearing coming up in the fall of this year. Estimated cost of $30 million. Now, we do not have this one funded yet, but we're working on funding options for it. And then if you take 1187 from Chisholm Trail over to 377, that's the next section of this particular project. Going from 2 lanes to 4-lane divided. And we've had this conversation before, trying to get out in front of the growth. I mean, the growth is happening out there, but we're trying to do our best to get out in front of it. So any questions specifically related to any of the projects that?
On the, I'm not sure if it's DFW connector or North Tarrant Express, but on 121, between Glade, Hall Johnson, you're working down from Cheeksparger up to, or south down to 183. But going north, I think on the northbound side, is there any discussion on widening, that area, I think it's 3 lanes.
There is.
It's 2 lanes and it goes to 3, and going south, it's 3 lanes and it goes to 2. So
Well,
when are you gonna fix it?
Well, they're fixing the south. I'm talking about the north now. When you're approaching Grapevine, traffic is backing up.
So right now, the project is to add what we call the technology lane. It's a peak hour lane. It's utilizing the shoulder during peak hours in that 2-lane section. So we'll have 3 lanes.
Going north or going south?
Both directions.
Okay, but that's
South
their,
and- That's further south than
that's
what.
their, south of Harwood.
But the bigger project on 121, the future project, does address all the way from 183 to 114.
Okay.
And the tie-in there at 360.
Any status on that?
Early, we're early in that process, so.
And I would argue, driving on 121 frequently, that if it's a peak hour, there ain't gonna be no non-peak hours. Because literally it is.
Congested the entire day.
It's congested just about any time of day that you go, that you're coming south, it backs up right there. So what would make you do it only in peak lanes and not, or, what I'm thinking of the 6 to 9 and 3 to 6 or 7?
So this allows us to do something, because we have air quality issues, some of our projects take a little longer than what we'd like for them to, especially if there's a toll component within that project.
Sneaky way to get it done.
So we're able to utilize this process to get some immediate relief.
Okay.
Instead of having to wait, 5 or 6 years to the future, we can get some immediate relief.
Okay. Now it's time for your safety announcement.
Yes, sir. So usually I cover safety at the beginning, but I wanted to cover it at the end this time, just because it's really important to us. We look at every project, we look at every fatality, and we meet about those deaths that occur on our roads in the Fort Worth District, and we look at them. So you always hear about the 3 E's. You hear about engineering, enforcement, and education. And so we really focus on the engineering. We try to do some education, which is part of my speech today. And then enforcement, we're not an enforcement agency. We rely on our law enforcement agencies out there. So as we look at each one, as you can see from the list here, a lot of them are hard to engineer. I can't engineer someone to put their seatbelt on, at least from a roadway perspective. So getting that information out, educating that if 48 of those 262 had just put their seatbelt on, there's a chance they could be living today. The obvious ones are the distracted driving, under the influence type issues. But run off the road, you may be able to look at something like that. All of us have driven where if you start creeping off the edge of the shoulder, you'll hit the rumble strips and it'll kind of vibrate you and go, oh, I'm somewhere I'm not supposed to be. So we look at all of our roads and try to add that to everywhere we can. So I wanted to show this just as kind of a breakdown of what we face as an agency and how we're trying to work through and address each one of these. And then I know everyone's heard of In the Street. So since November the 7th, 2000, we've had a fatality somewhere in the state on our roadways. That's hard.
Every day I think about, okay, can this be the day that we don't have that fatality?
And that, from my perspective, is, being in charge of this district, this 9-county district, it's tough for me to know that every day someone's gonna die on the roads.
Like 18 a day or something, average or something? Maybe
It's,
not that high.
yeah, I bet it's close. I bet it's really close. And we have been fortunate within the district. We have had a few days where we have been fatality-free, but the statewide as a whole.
I know we had one this morning on 183.
We sure did. We sure did.
It was closed down.
So again, I appreciate y'all letting me share my message here this morning. So, and I know that y'all work hard as well to get the safety message out there. So thank you.
We appreciate very much as you mentioned earlier, we work very closely together, and we appreciate that. We've always had a good working relationship, and if there's anything we need to do to help, and I know you feel the same way,
yes, sir.
We'll work together and continue to do that. So thank you very much for coming out.
Yes.
Thanks, Lord.
Thank y'all.
Your Honor, that's all we have this time.
And we'll recess our open meeting, proceed to close, to discuss items exempted under, we didn't have any public comments. I thought I saw one in your.
No,
We did not.
And we'll recess our open meeting, proceed to close to discuss items exempted under section 5. Hadn't picked up another pen.
Okay.
So check that pen when
I
you,
will.
before you start chewing on it. You might want to,
And I have it all.
yeah. Having returned from our closed session, we'll now address the following matters.
Members of the court, if we can go to item 10, which is the approval of bonds and certificates of self-insurance. We have two that we're asking your permission to do. The first one, we're requesting that you authorize the certificate of self-insurance by Tarrant County in lieu of a bond for S. Renee Tidwell, the county auditor, in an amount of $5,000 for a new term which begins April 27th, 2019.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are we sure that's enough?
I think by statute, that's all we can ask.
That's all we can ask? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And then finally, members of the court, we're asking that you approve the certificate of self-insurance by Tarrant County in lieu of bond for Robert Gilmore, who is a Constable Precinct 6 Reserve Deputy. This is an amount of $2,000. This is an office which the term of office beginning in January 1, 2017.
What?
Isn't that a little late?
Seems like late to me, but I'm not so sure. That may not be the term of the constable's office. Constables are up. Just did JP,
Yeah, that would
so
be.
it would be January 17 is the new term of the constable. That's what
Move for
that day.
approval.
No second, huh? Move approval.
No, he moved approval. You're seconding him? We got a second?
Yeah, whatever.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
I'll have an answer yet, but I believe that's what that issue
Okay.
is. Yeah. That's all we have at this time.
Adjourned.